What's up YouTube? This is John Helm with Helm, Woodshop, and Smithy with another knife making video. If you watched my last two videos, you watched me fail at making cable Damascus, not once, but twice, in an ascending fashion of failure. So I took some time, watched my old footage, watched some other YouTube videos, did a little bit of reading, mulled over it for a while. I think I have narrowed down what the real issue was, and I think it was the same problem both times. And I also came up with some solutions to those problems. I'm going to be implementing those today. So, I narrowed down the main cause, the main downfall of my Damascus in the past two attempts, and that was fire management. I wasn't getting my steel hot enough, and I wasn't able to move it within the fire so that it was heating evenly the way that we want it for a good forge weld. And two main factors were contributing to that. The first one was the tweer getting all clogged up with all that borax. The first couple heats, I had a hard time not burning up the steel. It would get so hot so fast. After that, I would have to leave it longer and longer and longer and longer to get it up to temperature. And towards the end, it was getting hot enough to stick the steel together, kinda, but it just wasn't getting hot enough, period. So I'm gonna have to make a new tweer cover that has bigger holes in it. Another thing is that I couldn't control the piece within the fire very well, because I had that brick enclosure. It was so full of coal, the steel was right in the middle of it, you couldn't move the coal to observe what was happening. You couldn't easily adjust the position of the workpiece inside the forge because there's nowhere to put any of the charcoal. So what I'm going to do, make a new tweer cover. I'm going to build a border around the outside of the forge so that I don't have to use that to contain all the coal inside. And hopefully between those two things I'll be able to get it hot enough on my next attempt. Here are the materials I'll be working with today. I have this piece of expanded metal. I'll be using that for the grating over the tweer. I have this piece of angle iron that was to hold those three bricks in place. So I'll be using a little bit of this to make a border on this so it's not sharp and catching on your coal rake while you're using it. And I'll leave some little tabs here so it'll click right over the pipe. It should fit nicely. Then here I have some 2" by 1/8" bar stock. Actually, that looks like maybe it's 3/16. So I'll be using this to make a border around the outside of the forge. I'm going to have to weld it right to the outside of the cast iron. So welding it might prove to be a little bit tricky, but it doesn't need to be a terribly strong weld. As long as it stays in place, it should be good. Alright, I got those pieces cut, got the edges ground down so they're nice and easy to touch, nothing's going to cut me. And we'll go ahead and just tack weld this on, and then we'll work on fitting it into the forge. Alright, here it is all welded up. It was tough to weld up, I think mostly because the expanded metal grate on the inside, the pieces are so thin, and it was just difficult to marry them to a much thicker piece of steel on the outside. You can see there, right on the corner, I burnt right through that grating. But it stuck down well enough. As long as it doesn't come apart in the forge, it should be fine. Here's the inside of the forge. So, as you can see, we're going to have to figure out some way to get this to sit down lower, and also so that it doesn't scoot around. So what I'm going to do is I have about, I don't know, I'd say 5/8 of an inch or so, half an inch maybe, of this Satanite cement in the bottom of the forge. I'm going to take a cold cut chisel. I'm just going to chisel some channels here for these pieces of angle iron to sit into. That'll stop it from wiggling around too much. If it doesn't sit down far enough, I'll have to grind down this edge of the angle iron so that it'll sit flush with the top of the tweer, but that shouldn't be a problem at all. I should be able to make short work of it. Anytime you're going to be chiseling masonry, you got to make sure you're wearing your PPE. I know I'm not usually the best about it, but little sharp rocks are going to be flying up, really easy for them to get in your eyes, stick in your face. They travel off with an impressive amount of velocity, so don't mess around with this stuff. as you can clearly see, once I started chiseling in here, it just crumbled and came all apart, which is not a big deal. Good news is this still fits in nice and tight, and being that I'm in North Texas and our soil is made out of almost nothing but clay, I have some that I purified a while back in a bucket. I'm just going to seal this up, and once it's baked, once I have my first fire in there for a while, it should be good to go. This, however, does stick up a little bit too far, so we're going to have to grind off these edges, which is not a big deal. I'll just take it over to the belt grinder, and we'll be done in a second. Yummy. This bucket of purified clay, been sitting out in the backyard for, I don't know, 4 or 5 months, and it smells great, let me tell you. But one thing it does do is it gets nice and hard, and it's pretty strong once it's baked. So here, I'm going to go ahead and pack all this up with some of that. While I'm letting that dry, I will take some of that stock, bend it, weld it around the edge here. Once that's welded in place, I'll probably give just a nice thin layer of clay all the way across the whole thing, just so it's nice and smooth. It makes it easier to rake your coal around because it's not getting stuck on the jagged edges and whatnot. So let's get to it. This feels disgusting. It feels so gross. You know when you used to go to Halloween parties and they'd have like a dark room with a bunch of spaghetti and stuff in bowls, and you'd stick your hand in it, and everybody would go, "Ooh!" Yeah, this is way worse than that. Plus, it smells like an unattended fish tank. Disgusting. All right, here it is. So I went ahead and took the grating out and filled in all that gap with the clay, and then just stuck it down in there. That way, it'll be supported on both sides by the clay. It's not perfectly in there and smooth and flush yet, but this is good enough for now. And it's hot outside. You can already see the outside of it's drying out. Even though some of it I put in there was really watery, it's going to take a while to get that dry. But we have plenty of time for that to happen, because in the meantime, I'm going to put a border all the way around here. All right, man. My plan of attack for putting this border around the outside of the forge, which is actually just a 15-inch cast iron skillet, is I'm going to cut off 42 inches of material, because the outside should be about 47. That way I'll have a 5-inch gap to put work pieces in and out. And then, since I don't have a working forge, I'm going to have to bend it cold. It's less than 1/4 of an inch thick, so it should be okay to bend cold, being that it's mild steel. But it's going to be a lot of work, a lot of elbow grease involved. So I'm just going to chuck it up in the leg vise, start putting a curve in it, and as it gets close enough, I can tack weld one of the ends in place and bend it the rest of the way around as I weld it. Alright, so the process of cold bending is a pretty easy one. Just set your vise so that it's a little bit wider than the piece of metal that you're going to be bending. Slide it on in, give it a little bend, advance it just a little bit, another little bend, so on and so forth. Periodically go test fit it on the piece that you're trying to fit it to. You're going to handle this just like you would filing a gourd on a knife. You're just going to make little tiny adjustments, double check, little tiny adjustment, double check, all the way down. That way you never overdo it. You don't want to overbend, because then you're going to have to bend it back, and then you're risking putting too much stress on that steel in that spot, and it could snap on you. So I'm getting pretty close to the final shape here. As you can see, I'm just moving it little bit by little bit. Alright, so unfortunately earlier my camera died, so I didn't get any footage of me getting the ring into the forge or getting it welded up. But I did get it in, I did get it welded. It was really difficult to do it with the cast iron skillet. I wound up breaking a piece of the cast iron off, but it's okay, it's a small piece. It's not going to be a big deal, and the location it's in is convenient. All the heat made some of the clay in there dry too quickly, and so it started cracking. So I'm going to let that finish drying the rest of the way. I'm going to come in, fill it in with some more clay, let it dry until the morning, and then we'll light the forge. And hopefully, with the modifications to the forge and the knowledge that I've gained so far, I'll have a successful cable Damascus weld up tomorrow. Till then, again, if you have any good ideas, if you know any techniques that I'm not using that I should be, let me know in the comments below, and I hope you will like and subscribe. Thanks for watching.